Okay, this is a supplemental video to your regular videos because some of you are having trouble with the concept of a nested if statement. Um, you'll get comfortable with nesting as we go along, but let's see if we can't develop a very small example that will, maybe I can throw in some more hints for you to understand. So you'll probably hear my dogs in the background, so let's make an example about what should I feed my dogs? So if the age of the dog is less than 1, then I should be feeding puppy food. And if the age of the dog is in the range of 1 to, I think it's 7, then I should be feeding energy food. And if the age of the dog is greater than 7, I should be feeding senior food. Let's throw in another one. If the dog is over 12 years old, he should have some food that has glucosamine. It's something to help the dog's hips. Okay, so I'm not going to do any input statements. I'm just going to declare a variable called age, and well, let's use a double. And I will just make an assignment here to say that the dog's age when we start is a half-year old. So let's write an if statement that says if the age of the dog is less than 1, I'll close the if there, and now I'll make an else statement. Okay, so here's an if-else statement, and if the age of the dog is less than 1 year, and because we're using doubles, I really should put 1.0 there. Okay, so what do we know in here? If this code, whatever code we put here, if that code executes, what do we know for sure? We know that the age of the dog is less than 1 year. And what do we know about the age of the dog if this code executes? Well, we know the opposite. We know that this is false, so we know that the age of the dog is 1 year or greater. Okay, so if the age of the dog is less than 1, what do we want to do? We want to feed puppy food. And I can't type this morning. Okay, so now what else do we need to do? So if the age of the dog is from 1 to 7, okay, so what do I already know in here? I know that the age of the dog is less than 1 year. So now if I write if the age of the dog is less than 7 years, and I'll make an else statement here. Indentation is kind of important because this will get complicated. So let me see. What are all of the things we know about the age of the dog if this code executes right here? Well, we know that the age of the dog is less than 7. What else do we know? Well, we're inside of this else, so we know that the age of the dog is not less than 1. So the age of the dog in here is from 1.0 to 7. Up to 7 and not including 7 because we said less than 7. So what do we want to do in that case? If the dog is of age 1 through 7, we want to feed energy food. Oops. Okay, what do we know in here? Okay, so we know that this condition was false, or we wouldn't have gotten into this else. And we know that this condition is false, or we wouldn't have gotten into this else. So if the age is less than 1, it's not. It's greater than 1, or it's 1 or greater. And is it less than 7? No, it's not. Not if we're in here. So this condition is false if we execute this code. So what do we know about the age of the dog here? We know that it is not less than 7.0. So that means in here we're now dealing with a dog that is 7.0 or greater. So I'm going to say if the age of the dog is less than 12, what do we know about the age of the dog here? Okay, so if we get to this line right here, we know that the dog is not less than 1 because we're inside of this else. We know that the dog is not less than 7, and we know that the dog is less than 12. So if it's not less than 7, but it is less than 12, that means right here we'll execute when the dog is from 7 to 12. What do we want to do if the dog is between 7 and 12? Well, it looks like we want to feed senior food. What do we know here? The dog is not less than 1, it's not less than 7, it's not less than 12. We know that the dog is 12 or greater. So I don't need an if statement at all because I know for sure that the dog is 12 or older here. So I'm going to feed the dog a food with glucosamine. I hope I'm spelling that right. I don't know. Okay, so I have used less than in each case when maybe I might have meant less than or equal to. My specification wasn't too exact. So if the dog is exactly 7, or if the dog is exactly 1, what kind of food does it get? Well, the spec wasn't too clear on that, so I said if it's exactly 1, it's going to get energy food. Exactly 1 up to less than 7. So I don't want to pick on less than or equal to too much. I just wanted to look at the construction of the nested if and make sure that everyone understands what the flow of control is here for a nested if. So let's try something. Let's put in a number here. Suppose the age of the dog is 11.5 years old. What kind of food should the dog get according to this? Well, he's older than 7, but he's not older than 12, so he should get senior food. Let's set a breakpoint and see if our code is working correctly. Okay, if you hover over age, it says, well, 11.5, that's good. So is this true? 11.5 is less than 1? It's not. So we're going into the false part. So let's make sure that it's doing what we expect. Let's step over, and it jumped into the else part. So is age less than 7? It is not. So we'll step over, and we'll go to the else part. So we know when we get here, it's not less than 1, and it's not less than 7. Is it less than 12? And it is. So we would expect to output print senior food, and we do. And we will not do this else part because this one was true. And it skips to the bottom. Okay. Let's try a different one. Let's say that the age of the dog is 6.9. What do you expect to have happen? If the dog is in the range of 1 to 7, then we would want to feed that dog energy food. So let's walk through this in the debugger and make sure it's doing what we expect. So far the age has the right value in it. We're not going to feed this dog puppy food. Is the dog less than 7? Okay, so what do we know right here? We know that the dog is not less than 1, but it is less than 7. So we can feed that dog energy food. So are you seeing how this works? Will we do this else? We will not, because this condition was true, so the false part of the if-else, we will skip this whole block. So we don't even go in here and test, because all of this code is part of the else, so we would only go in there if this condition were false. Let's step and make sure that it's doing what we expect, and it goes back down to the bottom. So that should print for a dog that's 6.9, we should be feeding energy food. Okay, there are different ways of doing this. We could have started at the top. We could have started by saying if the dog is older than 12, so we could have said greater than 12, feed glucosamine, and then gone down through the ranges, to get these if-else statements working correctly. I'm not sure why I started at the bottom, it's just how I thought about the problem as I started writing it down. One thing that you can't do is start in the middle. So if I said, if it's greater than 7, I wouldn't know what to do. If that was the first if age is greater than 7, I wouldn't really know whether I should be feeding senior food or glucosamine. So the logic here, how you express it with these nested ifs, is really kind of up to you. You should try to express it as close to the way the specification is worded as possible. That makes it an easier solution for someone else to read. Remember that 80% thing that we talked about? 80% of the cost of software is figuring out what someone else did. So we're going to keep concentrating on writing code that is easy for someone else to understand. So I hope this makes if-else statements a little bit easier for you, and this is a supplement to the to your regular series of videos. See you online.